I'm Dallas. We've talked a little bit on email, but I write for Clark Howard. I think you've worked with a couple of our other partners as
Yes.
well in the past. Do you want to introduce yourself a little?
Yeah, my name is Bree Reynolds, and I am the Career Development Manager at Flex Jobs. And I basically help job seekers find remote jobs and other jobs that offer flexibility.
So we're going to talk a little bit today about how to prepare for an online interview or a video interview. So just in general, what do you think somebody should expect when they have got an interview online, either live or pre-recorded?
There are a few things to expect. First of all, the nature of video interviews is usually now they're done on Zoom. That seems to be the platform that a lot of companies have picked up on, but it's not always the case. So it's important to figure out what platform is being used ahead of time. And then you have all the preparation that you need to do, which I know we'll go into, but thinking about that. You also want to know how many people you're interviewing with. So as you're setting up the interview, that could be something that you will ask, so that you're not surprised that 4 people show up on Zoom versus just the one that you might think is going to be there. So little things like that. The details are maybe a little bit hazier when you're going for a job interview. So it's important to seek them out so you have as much information as you can to prepare.
As far as things to keep in mind as your responses and your answers and what to know before you actually go into the interview, is there anything different that you would recommend compared to an in-person interview?
Yeah, I think for remote jobs and video job interviewing right now, part of the interview is probably going to be around your comfort with technology, how you have your home office set up, not just your ability to do the actual job at hand, but how you are organizing yourself in order to do it from home. Because even if you're hired right now to work from home for a little bit and then you go back to an office, the people are still going to want to know that you can work remotely and be productive when you're first starting. So definitely expecting some of those questions in addition to how do you actually do this job and perform as a professional in your chosen career.
Like you had said with technology specifically, what hardware would you recommend having ready before your interview, in addition to internet and things like that, like types of computers or cameras or mics?
Yeah, you can keep it pretty simple for the most part. Every now and then you'll have a company that requires you to have a certain speed of internet or something like that. So it's important to know those usually they're listed in the job description if they have that kind of specific requirement. But in terms of just getting ready for a regular video interview, having a relatively newer type of computer, so something in the last 4, maybe 5 years, if you have a newer one than that, that's fantastic. If you have something that's older than that, you're really starting to get into a much slower type of computer that might hold you back from your positive performance on video. And then you can usually use whatever camera is built into the computer itself if you have a laptop that has a camera. If not, you can get a pretty inexpensive mounting camera that goes on top of your computer monitor. And a lot of times they're HD and they're really high quality, but they're not that expensive. And you can usually find them, on Amazon or any kind of office supply website. But oftentimes that native camera that's already built into your laptop will do the trick just fine. I do recommend having a headset if you can, and even just having the simple one that comes with your smartphone. You don't have to buy a separate one. That really helps with the audio quality a lot. It helps to cut down on your background noise, any echoes that are going on, and it just makes your actual voice sound much clearer and closer to normal, like if you were actually having an in-person conversation. But if you don't have one of those, I would test out recording a video on your computer and just see what your audio sounds like, because it might be okay. You might not have a lot of echo or background noise going on and you could be fine. If not, I would recommend just getting, a pretty inexpensive headset like this one, or sometimes you might prefer the over-the-ear sort of earmuff headset. That can work well too. But again, you don't have to invest a lot of money in this. It can be a pretty inexpensive purchase. Just something will help. Something is better than nothing usually.
Just out of curiosity, when you mentioned smartphones, is there ever a scenario where you would recommend that people would interview with their smartphone if their smartphone camera was better at all, or would you recommend sticking to a computer if possible?
Yeah, I would say for some people, whether they get the job hinges on whether they can upgrade their laptop and things like that. So if you have older equipment in terms of your computer, I would say a smartphone might be a good alternative, especially if the platform that you're doing the video interview on is easily done on a smartphone. So something like Zoom or even sometimes FaceTime and things like that that are actually integrated into your smartphone might be used, or Skype. And if it's something like that has a really good app that you can use, then absolutely, I would say use your phone. Those have really high quality cameras. You probably have the headset that works really well with those. So that can be a really great alternative.
This is where I usually am for like office meetings and things like that. Would you say that this is an okay background or could it be improved?
Overall, I think it looks really nice. The main thing with your background is that it's pretty clear and clutter free. So you have a really nice, just plain color wall and a little bit of artwork. And there's nothing in the view that would distract people from what you're actually saying. And that's really the main goal, is to not distract people from your actual answers when you're doing a job interview. And so it's kind of, before we used to talk a lot about what you were wearing and how that could be distracting or not. And it's the same with your video background now, just making it as clutter-free as possible, as neutral as possible. Even if it's just a blank wall, that can be totally fine. I know a lot of people have their home offices set up in like a guest bedroom now. So you might have a bed in the background. Make sure that bed is made nicely, clean up that sort of thing. It's little stuff like that. You just don't want people paying more attention to what's behind you than what you're actually saying to them, so that you can convince them you're going to be the right person for the job.
Get some ideas on some different backgrounds. If I was sitting right here, would there be something that you would improve about this background?
Yes, absolutely. So in this case, your lighting before was great. You were lit from the front. We could see your face really well. And now you're lit from behind. And what that does is put a shadow over your entire face. So people can't see you. It's a bit distracting because it's so bright and you're now so dark. So I would definitely recommend, whenever possible, either if you have to be in that position, you could shut the blinds behind you, or make sure that you have a lamp in front of you. Sometimes people actually move a lamp and put it right in front of them so they have that bright light on top of them. But if you can get away from a window like that and have the light shining in your face instead of from behind you, that can definitely help a lot.
What about something like this? Is this too busy in the background, or is this okay?
I think it's probably okay. What you could do is remove a couple things from the mantle just to have it be even less busy. But really, there's not anything back there that is super duper distracting. The only thing I can say is I'm trying to figure out what the words are in that frame behind you. And so I'm a little bit distracted by that. So if it's anything like that, that people are like, oh, I wonder where those pictures are, where'd she go? That might actually be a nice conversation starter. But if it's too much stuff behind you, then it just starts to become a distraction. So even if you remove just a couple things, I think it would be even better. But it's not bad for now. No. And I think this proves that you can get really creative about where you are in your given space. And even just for a temporary interview, stacking up a bunch of books or boxes to get your laptop set up in the right place wherever works best, in a little corner in your living room or wherever it might be. There's a lot of options most people have.
Similarly, you mentioned clothes earlier. I wanted to ask, what tips would you have for picking out what to wear during a video interview, or what would you want to avoid as well?
Yeah. So there's a couple things to consider. The first is, if the job that you're going for is going to be in person eventually, so maybe it's temporarily hiring to work from home and then you'll be back in an office someday, you might want to just go with a traditional suit, because if you were interviewing with that company in the office, you would probably wear a suit. Now, for some companies, they're very casual. And so you might have a suit without a tie, or you might have just a really nice button-down shirt or a nice sweater. And you can kind of modify it that way. But I would probably go a little bit more formal than less formal, just to show that you really are putting in an effort. And again, to not distract people by maybe you being too casual in what you're wearing. And then in terms of choosing the actual specific clothing items, I would say solid colors are better than patterns, because on video with patterns, you tend to get some weird light reflection going on. And so it can actually, make it a little dazzling for the person who's watching you. It messes with the video and what they're seeing a little bit. So solid colors can work really well. And also in terms of like jewelry and things like that, if you talk with your hands a lot like I do, you want to avoid lots of bracelets or things that are going to be jangling around. And anything that's really big and bright, like either, big hoop earrings or a big necklace that can shine light in awkward ways, that can be a little bit distracting too. So tone it down with jewelry, keep it basically simple and very professional looking, and solid colors work really well.
What about right just before the interview starts? What are some last minute things that you should run through or double check just to make sure that things go as smoothly as possible?
I would, if you can, get on that platform that they're using for the video interview ahead of time. So you can use that link, you can log in ahead of time, and that's fine. It's usually going to be a link that's dedicated just to you. So it's not like you're going to be crashing someone else's interview or anything like that. And so that gives you a chance to test your audio, turn on your video, make sure everything looks good before somebody is sitting there and ready to talk to you. You don't want to be fiddling with all that technology. It also gives you a chance to troubleshoot things. And if it's truly not working for you at all, you can then contact the person that you're supposed to be talking with and let them know, I logged in early to make sure everything would be running, and I'm having some issues with this. Is there a backup that we could use, or is there a phone number I could call you at instead? What you could do ahead of time, just in case, is get that person's phone number, ask for it way before the interview, like when you're actually scheduling. And that way, if something comes up right at that moment that you're supposed to be starting the interview, you can give them a quick call and let them know that you were having technical difficulties, but you wanted to make sure you were able to talk to them, so you're calling.
Excellent. That was also what I was going to ask, is what should you do during the interview if things go wrong? Obviously, if you get the phone number ahead of time.
Yes. Yeah. Save yourself a lot of stress. Get that phone number ahead of time. And if you don't have it, definitely try going back to your emails, looking at the signature line, seeing if you can find their phone number, or just immediately sending them an email that says, I'm so sorry, I'm having technical issues. Here is my direct number. Please give me a call if it's convenient for you, or let me know if you want to reschedule. But I would say giving them the option to call you immediately is really helpful. If you're going to reschedule, you get bumped behind all sorts of other people who are already interviewing for the job, and you kind of risk putting yourself at a disadvantage because they're going to interview other folks who might win them over before you have a chance to.
Is there anything else that you could think of that people should keep in mind, even as far as like body language is something that comes to mind during an interview?
Yeah, for body language, I would say definitely pay attention to if you're slouching a lot, because it moves where you are in the video feed and it starts to make it look like you're kind of fading out of the view. And I have to remind myself this too, try to sit up. Some people actually find that it's helpful if they stand for a video interview. So if you have the ability to raise your laptop up or whatever, your camera, to stand, just because it helps you get some of that nervous energy out. And when you're interviewing, you're trying to like sit as still as possible, but you actually want to be moving a little bit. So sometimes standing can help. For some people, that's too much. So don't feel like you have to do it. But if you want to, that's one option. And then I would just say anything you can do ahead of time to practice talking on camera, doing a mock interview with a friend or a family member, or even just practicing recording answers to your camera on your own and then playing it back to yourself can be really helpful, just to get comfortable with the actual act of talking at a screen and not at a person, and where your eyes should be on the screen, if they're up too high, if you're actually looking at the camera, if you're looking down at things, just practicing getting that out of your system before you actually do the real interview. That can go a long way. Oh, one thing that I always forget to mention, but I'm always doing this, is when you are on the call, if you can situate the box on your screen so that the person who you're talking to is up towards the top of your screen and closest to your camera, that can really help, because then you can actually look at them and feel like you're talking to a person, but it's close enough to your camera where the eye contact still feels like it's there on video, and they feel like you're looking at them and not at like the center or bottom of your screen. So try to position that box up high.
Awesome. I think that's all that I had too. I really appreciate it. You brought up a lot of things that I just wouldn't have thought about preparing for ahead of time, especially with online videos. So that's really great.
Awesome. No, thank you. And thank you for the creativity and moving around your apartment. That was the only time anyone's ever done that. And it was really cool to do that. So great idea.
Thanks. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.